There's been a lot of questions that I get pretty consistently about sound with Adobe Animate. So I'm going to take some time here and just cover some things that are pretty easy to find with searches and also maybe not as easy to find, and just kind of give you a couple of ways of handling sound in your projects. So obviously we have the same project from before, and what we're going to do is one, do a really simple adding some sound to our button here when we click it. And then the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a button that will let us toggle a background sound that gets played whenever the file is running. So let's go ahead and start off first with the adding the sound to the button, which is the easiest thing to do. So I went to a couple of sites and found some free sound. So the first thing we want to do is import that sound. So we're going to go File, and we're going to import this into the library. The reason why is we want to be able to access adding the file from the library. We could do it to the stage, but since it's a button, we need to handle it a different way. So we'll go ahead and import. And what we want to do here, I have a button sound that I have converted using Audacity because Adobe Animate prefers that your sound be in a very specific format. So I'm going to go ahead and import that one first, and you'll see that that button got added in. Now I want to go ahead and just show you what I did in order to do that conversion. So here I have Audacity, which is free. You can download it and install. So I'm going to open up, and here is the original button, and you see that the hertz rate for it is 4800. And all we got to do to get this to where, because if we try to import this into Animate, if we try to choose that first one, all we're going to do is get this error, and it's not really very helpful. So, but the error is because it is a 48,000 hertz rate, and all we have to do is just switch that to 44100, file, export as an MP3, and just click on the same one before. You can leave everything else the word by default. So go ahead and replace it. You'll get this window here. You can ignore this or just hit OK. And let's just to verify, I'm going to delete this from the library. Import to library again. Let's pick the second one. We see that it imported no problem. So if you encounter those errors, just make sure that your sound files are 44/100s, and it should come in no problem. So what we want to do now is we want to add that sound to our button here. So if we go into our button and we go to the down frame, let me just go ahead and delete this. So we'll make a new layer, and let's just call this sound. And what we want is we want it to be on the down frame. So I'm going to hit F6 to make a keyframe here. And if we go to the property window, under the frame that we're selected on, so our down frame, we're in our button, we pick the down frame, and we come to properties frame. You see right here you have a sound option, and since we only have one valid sound in our library, we just go and pick that. We can leave everything else alone, and if we just go ahead and run this, obviously it works the way that we want it to. So we're good. All that's fine and dandy. That's the easiest way to do it, and obviously you can do the same type of thing for the other button states. But now for our sound toggle, so we can play a background sound, I'm gonna show you a different way of handling this. So going to let's make a new layer here, and let's call this toggle sound. And I'm going to make, let's just put this like down in the corner, something like this, whatever. And I'm gonna go ahead and convert this. Now when I convert it, hit F8. I'm not going to convert this to a button, but rather I'm going to leave it as a movie clip. And let's go ahead and just call this audio toggle. And we'll just go ahead and hit OK. So now we have a movie clip. This movie clip, we're going to call this audio toggle, give it the instance name. And if we go inside of it, I'm going to go ahead and make another frame here. So hit F6. So we have 2 frames. These 2 frames are going to represent the on and off state for our audio manager. So we need another layer. Let's call this text. And I'll go ahead and create. It's going to start in the off state. And actually, I'm going to set up this background color first. So when I do this, I'm going to kind of just use the swatches that we see, and I like following the pattern that they have. So this is going to start here, and then this will be the off state, and then I'll go to the swatch right next to it, which is a nice increase from the previous value. You don't have to do that. It's just something that I prefer, since I think that these colors look good together. So we're going to start here. The next one, we started here. I'm going to go to this one. So we now have those 2 colors. Notice my text is set as a dynamic text. Let's go ahead and put this in the center. And let's select and do our line. All right. So let's go back. This is I'm going to call this sound text. We've got to have an instance name. So it's going to start off when it gets to where we click it and it goes into the on state. It's going to look like this, and obviously it's going to say on. So I'm going to just make sure that our text window here is inside of the button. Everything's good to go. So now we need to actually code this up. So let's go back. Let's add our actions here. We can do this. We can either have this be all just code, or we can actually tell it to say just go to and stop. But I find it to be just good practice. Just go ahead and get your stops in. So, all right, no problem. So we got our stops. Let's go back, come up here, and we click on our button, audio toggle, go into our actions. And we want this to be on frame 1. So here's the code from before. And what I want to do now is I want to add in our new code. So let's pick on our button. And because we're selected on it, and this particular button doesn't have sound directly applied, that's why we don't see anything, even though we're on frame 1, which is up here. But if you click on this and you see the code, you've now deselected your button in your code snippets. Is it going to work? Because you're actually selected back on the document. So just one of those little tricky things that can sometimes slip you up. So with it selected, go to our actions and go right to our code snippets. And in our code snippets, we want the audio and video. And what we want is to click to play and stop sound. So this is the actual toggle here. So we'll just go and double click this. All of the code is set up perfectly for the the actual toggling. So we have a sound channel that's going to play. Just like the button before, we've given an event listener to when we click on our mouse. Oh, sorry, when we click on our movie clip button. We have a variable that keeps track of whether or not we want to play it. So this to play, we see is getting set to this exclamation point here is saying set the Boolean of this value, which starts off true, to the opposite of whatever it currently is. That's what exclamation point means. So it's pretty typical code here. So we're just, whatever it is, whenever we click it, set that value to whatever the opposite state is. And that lets us get into, what we do when we want to play these. Now, the only thing that's different here is we don't want to use this particular sound. We want to use the sound that we have just created. So if we go back to our library here, we have our button 2. So we want to play this one. So let's right click, go properties, and that's going to open up this window here where we can switch to the action script. And this is where we want to actually export this. We want to export this as, let's just, I guess we can leave it as button 2 or button, but it's not the button sound that we want to play, right? We want to play a different. This is going to be the background. So I actually have another one. So we'll file import to library, and I have another file that's almost 2 minutes long. So again, I did the same thing. This one was the 48,000, and I've already converted this one. So let's bring that one in. So we have our a file of just some background ambiance from Africa. So we're gonna go into it, action script, export for action script, and I'm gonna call this with a capital since it's a class that we're exporting here. So I'm gonna export this. Frame 1, export for action script. The class is called Savannah. Base class is a media sound. Okay. We hit OK. It gives us this warning. This is fine. It's just telling you that it's going to generate the code for what you just clicked or what you just created. So we'll hit OK. So if we go back to our sound here, we aren't going to use this because you see it's creating a new sound and it's creating from this one. That's not what we want. We just created our own, and it's a Savannah class that we want to create. That is what contains the audio from our African Savannah. So that's what we want to play. That's going to be our sound. We go through, we play it, it's going to stop it. So let's see what happens here. Let's just run this. So I click it, I can hear the sound playing. I click it again and it stops. Okay, so that part's working. Now we just need to code up our button state, which is very simple. There's one little tricky part to it, and that's the reason why I wanted to make the video. So the first thing we want to do is we want to tell, obviously we want to see the color state of the button change, and we call that audio toggle. And we're going to say go to and stop frame 2. So we're going to go to and stop. So this is the one that we see when we're in the play state. So let's copy this code. When we stop it, we want to go back to frame 1. So let's test that. So sound's still working. We click it again, we go back to the off state. Okay, so now all we got to do is actually change the text now. So remember, this, unlike before, unlike this dynamic text, which is sitting right on the stage and is directly accessible, this dynamic text is inside of this movie clip. So we have to dig inside of our movie clip to access this text. So that's why it's a little bit different. in a little bit different way that we need to approach it. So what we're going to do is it's still the audio toggle that we want to access. So audio toggle, and we have to actually do a get child by name. You see it turns blue, which lets us know that it's a valid function that we're calling. If it doesn't turn blue, you've misspelled it. Sound text is the name of the text inside of our movie clip that we want to access. Now, you would think that you could just do dot text and set that to, you see it turns blue, so it looks like it's, it's valid. Let's go ahead and say, okay, when we're in this state, we're going to set that text to on. Let's see what happens. So we get an error. Obviously our movie is acting funky and we're getting an error displayed in our compiler. So clearly what we tried to add is not going to work. And basically what we need to do is we have to do a cast. So what I mean by that is we need to turn what we have into something that we can actually access. And that is going to be a text field. So we want to take the dynamic text that we have selected, and we want to convert it to a text field. Now, this has to be inside of parentheses. That will allow the cast from our dynamic text to a text field that we can actually directly access in this method. So let's take this. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste it down here, and this is going to be off. You see, we don't get any errors. We're in the off state. We click. Now it's set to on. Now set to off. So we have a very easy and easily customizable button here. That's not a button, but it's a movie clip. So that means that we can have all these cool effects if we want to pretty easily on these on and off states. All you gotta do is just, you're telling it to go to and play a particular frame, so you can do whatever you want with it. But just felt like that was, definitely worth covering to show a little bit of some sound in Adobe Animate. Hopefully this works and helps you, and I hope you guys have a great day.